I'm Ronnie from Ronnie's Garage in Southern California. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to be focused on a Silver Shadow. This is a 73 Silver Shadow with, I think, 3,200 miles. No, sorry, it is now up to 4,800 miles. It's almost worn out. So this is a pretty rare car to have that low mileage. We're going to do a service. So this one came in and had no brakes. That was the major concern. No brakes, service, we'll look it over. That's real common. So this is all part of things. I could say, okay, it's seeping. I can make a note on that service sheet. And when it says there's a line for leaks, you know, on the engine, then I can I circle that and I can write seepage, anything like that. The idea is not to, well, there's two ideas. First of all, I'm in business. I like to sell work. That's how I make a living. But more importantly is I like to let the person know what's going on. That's why it's called an annual maintenance. So let's say down the road, he says, well, I've got this leak. It's been a little drip and it's starting to bother me. We can refer back to this and say, well, it could be that. Let's revisit it. But it's important for me as a professional to let the customer client know what's wrong with their car. Just because there's a little leak here doesn't mean we have to fix it. It's not cheap to fix, but at least they know. Okay, so let's continue back here. As you can see, this is a little damp under here. This is the transmission. When I do a look over, I like to look for leaks. This is not bad. I really, this thing sat overnight and really there was nothing under it. Engine mounts right here. This is something you want to check when you're servicing. These are what makes me believe the mileage on this car. This is an original motor mount. The new ones look different. So this particular model has the engine and transmission supported by these two mounts and one mount up front. And you can see this from this angle if you want to see it. Over here, there's the front motor mount. See it? It's this thing right in there. See it? That looks good. While we also want to look at suspension joints. This is a compliance mount. You can see that's a little bit cracked. The compliance mount keeps that arm from moving back and forth. If you hear a clunking in the brakes and the front suspension, when you back up, you hit it and you hear a clunk, and then you go forward and you hit it and you hear a clunk. It's usually this mount has gone bad. I've seen them to where there's no rubber left and it's just metal to metal and it's just flopping back and forth. This mount with these adjuster threads here controls your caster on your alignment specification. You look for these control arm mounts down here. This is a lower control arm mount. Typically, when they're bad, you won't see any rubber in there. These look pretty good. There's some up front. Usually you look for rubber bits hanging out. Out of the way. So on the service sheet, you're supposed to tighten the lower radiator hose. There it is right there. I think I'll grab a screwdriver. You're supposed to tighten all the hose clips, they call them in England. But this is the, as you can see, you just want to make sure they're not loose. If there's a drip there, that's something you want to be concerned with. Okay. We will look at the brake pads. This one will be easy over here. So on my check sheet, I have brake pad thickness in millimeters. Brake pad thickness is between this metal plate, which is bonded to the brake, and the disc, or rotor as we call them in the US. So this, let's see, in millimeters, I'm gonna guess it's about 7. I can't even read that. When they're brand new, they're about 10 or 11 millimeters. So essentially, if whatever numbers that I write on that sheet, let's say it's 7, 5, 4, that's the percentage. So 7 would be 70% of your brakes remain. Okay, if it's 4, 40%. Same on the back. I cheat. I use a mirror, which I got to find real quick. You can pull the wheels. If the tires look like they need rotating, which actually I think I might do that on these, you can do that. But I get inside with a mirror And with my calibrated eyeballs, I'm going to say that that's probably about 7 or 8 millimeters also. And you can see that one right there. These are fairly new. The calipers have been off of this car recently. Same on this side. We can look at this. And you can see some signs of brake fluid. I was working on the brakes yesterday on this car. We had some problems. So that's about the same. That's about 8, 9 actually. Torque arm mounts, real common problem on these cars. There's 2 rubber mounts in here, and then this is called a torque arm. When you accelerate and decelerate, that differential wants to float around, and that's why they call it a torque arm, because it takes the torque. These are real notorious for going bad, and you can tell when they're bad when you drive the car, and you're driving down the road, let's say 40 miles an hour, you let off the gas, and you hear a clunk, and you hit the gas again, and you hear a clunk. That's this thing moving up and down because the torque on the differential is changing. It's not the same as hitting the brakes and getting that clunk, because that's in the front suspension, because your wheels are locking up and it's moving the suspension like this. This is just under driving down the road. Real common thing. We're going to check the oil and the axles. Here's, if you want to come over here, you can see the axle. These are ball and trunnion axle. And this has this big rubber boot on here. It's an axle boot. And inside there is supposed to be 90 weight oil, just like in the differential. In the center of this shaft going into the differential is a hole. And that's why when these things, typically when you open this up and it hasn't been serviced by somebody who knows these cars, a whole bunch more oil comes out. And you wonder, how did the differential get overfilled? And it's what it is the work of this axle pushing that oil in there. So they have a plug right here. It's a 1/2 inch head. I'm going to get a wrench. Now that should not be full. It usually might hold 1/4 cup, 4 to maybe 8 ounces, not that much usually. And it's filled with 90 weight, like I said. Little bottle. I have a squirt can. It has gas. So what I do is I stick my squirt can in there, and I'll squirt off 20 or 25. I didn't count, so somebody will correct me. And then I make sure that there is oil in there. Oh, so that's enough. It doesn't take a whole lot. If you overfill it, it's just going to go into the differential or someplace else. If these boots are torn, cracked, leaking, they need to be replaced. The later cars use a low bro joint, which is a constant velocity joint with ball bearings and all that. This is a ball and trunnion joint. When these things go dry for a long time, what you'll get is they will wear inside, and they will wear divots in that housing, this big housing out here, so that under acceleration, you might feel a vibration. And it's not like a drive shaft vibration. It's a little different. Or another thing will happen is if you have, it only does it when you have passengers in the back. That added weight, what it does is it changes the position of the axle, so it's moved to a different spot inside this housing. And it only does it, if it only does it when you have people in the back seat, definitely these axles. So let's get the other one open. I hear somebody's phone in the background. Please mute yourself.
Ronnie?
Yes?
Wouldn't passengers in the back be compensated by the auto height?
You would think so, should it be working. But that's when you feel it more, guaranteed. I've had that. Just so you know, Craig, not every one of these cars does everything work on.
But it's a Rolls-Royce.
Uh-huh. And what dictates the amount of work being performed on it? The owner's pocketbook.
Yes. Thank you, Ronnie.
Okay, no problem, Craig. That was kind of mean because Craig's got his car in a shop and he's been doing nothing but dumping money into it for a year or two or even more, I think. So I
Still.
understand. Still. So there's a little aluminum washer on there. So I looked at it. It's still intact. A lot of people believe you have to change the washers every time you do anything. I don't believe in that. If it's still intact, just another little squish will do.
You didn't tip that one to see if the oil flew out.
You're right. I did that for demonstration purposes.